All right. Hello, everyone. The Boren Awards team is so excited to welcome you all to the third session, actually, of our recurring Boren Alumni Ambassador series, straight from the source. Our hope with this series is that you will gain a better understanding of what it means to be a Boren recipient, and that we also inspire you all to hit submit on your applications. My name is Bailey Preston. I was also a 2020 Boren Flagship Scholar to Brazil, and I'm very happy to be here with you all this evening as we convene to shine a light and hear from our awesome Boren Alumni Ambassadors, Dr. Daryl Jones and Chase Alexander. Um, there's no better group of folks than our alumni ambassadors to give you a holistic view of every step of the process of the Boren Awards pipeline and the benefits that come along with being a Boren recipient. So, Chase, Dr. Jones, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. We really appreciate it. And I would also like to say thank you to all of you for attending. We are so excited to see your interest in learning about Boren and applying to the program. And we hope that this webinar is informative and beneficial. Um, Today's session is going to be split in half. We use the first 30 minutes for some questions that we pre-prepared, and then the last 30 minutes we'll open it up to Q&A. Feel free to chat, use the chat, the Q&A function, or raise your hand, your virtual hand that is, to ask your questions, and then you can unmute yourself and ask your questions directly. But with that, let's absolutely get started. First question is just simple introduction. So Daryl, Chase, whoever wants to go first, can you tell us your name, naturally, or your full title, if you would like, the year you were awarded, your overseas location, the language you learned, and your current federal position to the extent that you can.
Thank you. I'm Chase Alexander. I was awarded the Boren in 2019. So I received the award in, I believe, January or mid-May, something like that of 2019, and I went to Morocco in the fall of 2019 and the spring of 2020. So I was there for a total of around 8 months, I believe. Loved my time, and my current federal position is I'm an Army officer, and I currently serve in a variety of capacities for the Army.
Thanks, Chase.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Daryl Jones, and I was also a 2019 fellow to Morocco. So it's crazy that's been 6 years ago. So some of the information that Chase and I share might be slightly outdated, but nonetheless, we anticipate that'll be comprehensive and still applicable nonetheless. Um, I should note that Chase and I were part of the historic COVID cohort because we were all evacuated due to COVID, which none of us anticipated going in when we were in your position, but things happen. But nevertheless, I had 7 months on the ground in Morocco. Currently, I am the Associate Chief Academic Officer at the Defense Security Cooperation University. I know that's a long name. And I've actually been with my same agency since finishing my Boren. In 2021, I finished it. So I've stuck around there. My parent agency, the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, is responsible for facilitating foreign military sales. So all of our weaponry that goes to our international allies and partners, our agency facilitates that. We facilitate every single dollar that's been allocated to the war in Ukraine. So those are part of the interesting things that our work does. Over.
Amazing. Thank you both, Dr. Jones and Chase. My next question, and Daryl, we'll start with you for this one. I meant to say, I was also a COVID recipient, but I had the opposite experience. My program was just super, super delayed. I was awarded in 2020 and didn't actually go anywhere until 2022. So I feel the
Wow.
pain. Um, but back to the what we're here to actually do. Daryl, why did you apply to Boren?
Yes, I was actually in the final year of my PhD at Howard University in Washington, D.C. And at the time, or the focus of my dissertation was on Mauritania specifically, but the broader Sahel region, all countries that were off limits for the boron. So I wanted to go and get as close to my region of study as possible. So that was really the impetus for me applying. And I actually found out about the Boren Awards literally the final week of December 2018. So I had about 2.5 weeks to get my application materials together. But nonetheless, everything turned out perfectly and it's been a phenomenal experience.
Extremely impressive. Chase.
Sure. So I applied originally because for probably threefold reasons. I had an interest in language, as well as history and regional studies. I had done some traveling in high school on various mission trips and stuff. So I had sort of a wide interest in the world overall, right? And languages as it goes up in studying languages. And, my father traveled a lot when I was younger. And so I was always interested. But I happened to be in ROTC at the time. And my academic advisor sort of told me about the program and said, hey, this is something that you should look at. And when I really learned, about, the Boren itself, its core, ethos about why they want to allow U.S. students and they want to promote this program in the U.S. to study abroad. I just thought it was exactly a great fit for me, quite frankly. So I decided to apply, and I'm very grateful I did.
Awesome. Nice to see that there was already some kind of connection between what you both were doing and Boren. So it's nice how that worked out. I think we've answered my next question, so I'm going to skip to the next one, which is, and Chase, we'll start with you for this one. How was your language slash overseas location relevant to U.S. national security, and what was your process for writing the national security essay?
Sure. So I selected it. I selected Morocco for the same reason almost that Daryl did. I was interested in the Sahel region, but I was interested in the Sahel region through the lens of Morocco itself, as well as some of the national security or other things going on in Morocco, as it regards to counterterrorism. So studying Morocco as a whole, it was just very uniquely positioned, in my opinion. So, it sits in the northern part of Africa, but it has like really interesting networks between both, the below the Sahara, the Sahel region, as well as throughout the rest of Africa, but also to Europe, and it sits, alongside the Atlantic, entering into the Mediterranean. And the U.S. has, some interesting history. Morocco is, in fact, the first country, if I'm not wrong, to recognize the U.S. after independence. So we have a long history. So I figured, this is kind of like a threefold, connecting thing. So I decided that was very interesting to me and important. And along with that, I had studied French and I earned an undergraduate degree in French and history. And Morocco not only spoke French, but they also had both modern standard Arabic and a dialect of Arabic. And I said, well, I'm interested in Arabic because it also pertains to not only Africa, Northern Africa, but the Middle East as well. So I really saw Morocco as kind of like this linchpin between various different interests of mine, both academically, politically, national security wise. So I said, this is the great place to go and learn a new language. And I had started studying Arabic slightly before then, so I said I can go and continue this new language. And then I wrote the essay not only on national security itself, but like as it really pertains to the U.S. as well. If we support our allies, we build up a presence that helps not only Africa but Europe, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, et cetera. There are so many compounding benefits, and that's why I chose the country itself, the language, and that's really what I wrote about my essay.
Awesome. Thanks, Chase. Dr. Jones?
Yeah, I echo a lot of the sentiments that Chase shared as well. Morocco is a phenomenal country, quite literally at a crossroads between Africa, Europe, the Mediterranean, the Middle East. Just due to its geographic position, there across the Strait of Gibraltar with Spain, it is an anchor state for global affairs, being able to help facilitate or hinder trade through the Mediterranean. Also, the fact that it's been one of, if not like the first country, I believe, that recognized American independence. So it's been a longstanding partner for the United States. And so my interest in going there was because I had already spent some time in the Middle East. I had spent time in Oman and Jordan as well. So I wanted to go somewhere that was new and different, but also still very critical. And again, due to my own academic pursuits, it was a very relevant country to go to study. So just having the crossroads of influence and cultures. I was also really interested and attracted by studying the Amazigh language, which maybe I'll be able to speak about later on, because I actually studied both Arabic and Amazigh or Berber while I was there. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. We'll start with you as well for the next question, which is how has Boren impacted your academic, personal, and professional life?
Well, Boren was phenomenal in helping me, finish my dissertation. Obviously, the board didn't do the work for me, but being able to like get there on the ground, in Morocco, and just kind of like the opportunities that it opened up for me was phenomenal. And I really credit the program to getting me to where I'm at now. As I mentioned, like I'm still with the same agency that I did my service with, my 1 year of service, which I found through the National Security Education Inset job portal back during COVID. And so it's truly been phenomenal. Of course, I think in my experience that there still is not wide renown. The Bourne program is not too well known, even in federal spaces. But thankfully, at my agency, they actually allot certain billets. I believe there's like 3 billets that are specifically geared towards Bourne fellows. So there's a lot of awareness within my agency and the work that we do. People recognize the importance of the program and the skill set that all of you as potential applicants could bring to the, I keep saying Department of Defense, excuse me, Department of War, the DOW space, and the federal government more broadly. So it's truly been helpful in that. And then finally, on a personal level, I live in Northern Virginia, where there's a large Syrian population, a large Lebanese population, a large Jordanian Palestinian population. So just being able to kind of relate on some degree with language and food culture, that's truly been phenomenal. Being able to establish some acquaintanceships, even some friendships off of just kind of like language commonalities.
Amazing. Thank you, Chase.
Sure. So I think my academic experience is a little bit different than Dr. Jones here, where I see it as for him, it was, a great way to cap off his, really, really well accomplished career and then propel him into professional life. Bourne came for me sort of midway, right? Midway through my academic career, which there is a bit of a difference because and as Daryl had said, it opens a lot of doors that many people are not aware of. So for me, when I received Boren in my sophomore year, I believe, of undergrad, and so at that time, I knew I was interested in certain things, but I didn't really have a way forward, right? So for me, Boren opened up so many doors beyond what I had available post Boren. I said, well, I love this experience. I want to use travel more, use more of my language or study more the language further, explore the opportunities. And since then, I was a Fulbright semifinalist after that. And then Boren, in my opinion, really is what got me into graduate school, right? And at the time, I didn't have graduate school in mind whatsoever. I was like, I'm not going to be a graduate school guy whatsoever. And when I applied to 12 schools. And I think, I really do think Bourne was key into getting me into most of them before I settled on, my alma mater, Harvard, where I did regional studies. So I think Bourne really gave that basis for such a program to accept me because they said, the guy has experience in this realm, and we want to, continue developing individuals like him. In terms of personal, we'll get into this more as the conversation goes on, but there's so many personal character traits or values and things that you learn about yourself as you travel, about studying a language. You learn more about other cultures. You start to value things, and it really improves who you are as a person. It really gives you that well-rounded perspective, which is what Bourne is also looking at. For you when you guys apply, present yourself as that one of those well-rounded people. And then I think professionally at the time I was, an RTC cadet, and I ended up commissioning after my undergrad. And Boren gave me the opportunity to say, there are countries out there where we have partners and allies, and we want people, all over the military to have cultural experience, to have linguistic experience, to work with our allies and partners and use their skills to benefit, our common shared values or both of ourselves. So I think overall, it really pushed me way ahead than where I expected to be. And I don't really have enough time to really go into so many of the things the benefits it gave me.
Amazing. Thanks, Chase. Thank you both for sharing all of that wonderful, like, personal insight and like transformation. That is so awesome to hear. Um, my next question is related to your current roles in public service. Just kind of curious, Daryl. I know you said that you found your job on the InStepNet job board, so your process was a little different. And Chase, in the same vein, you were an ROTC cadet already on track to commission. So kind of different circumstances. Just really interested to know, Chase, why ROTC, why the Army, and then Daryl, kind of how. What did you think when you saw the DCSA position? Were you like, I don't know, this sounds interesting, this fits, or were you like, let's just see how it goes? And Chase, we'll start with you for this one.
Sure. I want to give one caveat, and there's a key caveat that many people aren't aware of also when it comes to military service. And this is important because it's another way to accent your personal or professional experience, right? So when I commissioned, or I plan to commission and go into active service. Now I've done time on active duty and I've done time on reserve duty, which is basically the same as the guard, slightly different. But um, currently, what I like to say that I am in terms of my military services, I'm kind of like a free agent, right? So I get to choose what I want to do in my everyday life in some cases, right? Just recently, I traveled to South Korea with the Army, and I did some time in South Korea with the Army. I've gone to other places. I've traveled a little bit. I've hopped on different types of like active duty tours where I've spent every day in the Army for long periods of time and short periods of time, and then civilian life as well. So you have the opportunity when, if you consider military service, of being like this free agent, right? So had you then you do all the requirements and obligations of the military service, you then go search for a job like anyone else in the regular field, right? And that helps you accent your other professional interests, right? So like Daryl, I also looked at the NSEP job board. I also qualify for those hiring authority exemptions as well. So I could, just like anyone else, look and get one of these jobs at these other institutions if I wanted to, or I could go back more on active duty time, right? So I chose that because there's a lot of flexibility, and it worked out really well for me. I get to live the best of both worlds. Um, I do recommend active service in general. I also love that as well. But I think many people think it's more of like, well, I don't want to give 4 or 5 years or whatever amount of time to the army or the military and say, well, there goes my civilian career, right? But a lot of these things translate, and they translate really well. And so when you accent a Boren award or a scholarship or a fellowship with military service in the federal, workforce, you are highly, highly, highly sought after and valued as an employee, as a team member. You bring a breadth of experience and a wide knowledge, variety of knowledge, really.
Thanks, Chase. Daryl.
Can I just put second to Chase's comments? I think he captured everything really nicely. But from a civilian perspective, yes, Bailey, I went in just kind of like, oh, this job seems interesting enough. I'll do my 1 year of service and then keep it moving. And I should also note that before um, even departing from Morocco, I had actually applied with the CIA and was under the process for that. And as my 1 year of service was coming up to complete the Bourne service requirement, I actually finally got my offer from the CIA at that point, which was a 3 year process, by the way. If anyone's interested in that, we can talk about that later on. But by that time, I was at a crossroads like, do I take this? Do I want to stay on with my current employer? And I actually decided the latter, to stay on with my current agency, but I wanted to transition into a different role because the role that I was doing wasn't interesting to me at all. Um, and so like, I was able to transfer teams, and that work was much more interesting. I'm an academic through and through. I'm a researcher through and through. And so that's the work that I'm on now. And beforehand, I was doing kind of like program analysis, which wasn't interesting to me. Um, so yeah, mine is not as, elaborate and if dare I say sexy as Chase described his situation, but that was my experience.
Thank you, Daryl. I do have to give one policy change update announcement. Um, You cannot apply for federal positions while you are overseas. So anybody that is applying this year, you should not be in contact with any federal agencies. You should also not be applying for federal positions while you are overseas. You are a student first and only while you are on your Born Award. You should also not be working or interning with any federal entities. So just keep that in mind. Nonprofit work, all those good things, great, awesome to do. Local businesses, totally on the table. But anything federally related is not going to be good to go. Okay. So just keep that in mind. But thank you for sharing that. That's super cool. CIA is awesome. Okay. Daryl, we're going to start with you for this next one. I think you've kind of already touched on this a little bit, but if you could maybe expand it just a tid, a tidge, what am I saying? What does your agency do? Like on the day to day, what does your typical day work day look like, and what do you like most about your job? So I'm kind of combining three questions, but first, what does your agency do?
Yeah, so our mother agency, the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, again facilitates foreign military sales. If you've been following the news, I think just a couple weeks ago, President Trump and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia signed an agreement for F-35s. I forgot how many of it is, but our agency will be facilitating, that transfer of that weaponry. And that goes for, any of our foreign military allies and partners. We're also responsible for training the Ministry of Defense attaches and assistants who are staffed at our embassies around the world, and also the senior defense officials and military attaches who staff our embassies around the world. There are many components under that agency. Again, I work for the university that's under that agency, and our university is very much internal facing, so it's not something that I imagine any of you have heard of before. It is only for security cooperation personnel, specifically with the Department of War, some Department of State people, and even some foreign military and foreign civilians who are associated with foreign military partners. So we facilitate that security cooperation, making sure that American interests are prioritized, but at the same time that we are, putting our foreign allies in positions to where they're also secure and our relationships are mutually beneficial. And if I can say so, my role, I do curriculum development for the university. So it is incumbent upon me to, do that research on what is needed in different places around the world, and then developing and updating continuously a solid programming. And our courses range from literally 1 hour to 2 months, and just kind of like just stacking individual coursework and making sure again that it is relevant and can be applicable in a way that is again like beneficial to that foreign country, but then also to the United States.
Awesome. Sounds super awesome what you do, Daryl. Thank you, Chase. Over to you.
Sure. I won't. I think I'll probably take this opportunity to explain a little bit more of some of the other things that you could do rather than my experience on a day to day, just because it won't. It's an odd thing and it won't make much sense, and there is no set sort of routine. But I can tell you there are a lot of good experiences that are plausible if you choose the route of either both active duty or reserve or guard, regardless of that route. But I know from reserve or guard perspective, I have several friends that work both in government agencies on their everyday life. Uh, a few in my actual unit. One works as an ATF agent on the daily basis. One works as a DEA agent. Another works as actually several people work in Homeland. So there are different everyday today jobs that you could have in federal or outside of. I know many people who get jobs at JP Morgan or consulting, and they do this on a regular basis, and then they manage their federal work really well. As an example, another friend of mine who's a pilot, as a helicopter pilot, and he likes to brag to me sometimes that you can have your everyday job, right, and then on the weekend, as part of your service, your monthly service, he likes to fly from Maryland up to New York City to have lunch with his helicopter. So he flies up through the Hudson, gets to see a gorgeous view. He lands there, gets a slice of pizza, and then flies back, and that required to keep those skills, intact. He fulfills that monthly requirement that also fulfills, your that could fulfill your other board and stuff that you will be on longer periods. You could do either um, deployments or directional tours. I know some guys just go, fly helicopters for like 6 months, and then they come back or whatever. Or you could be an F-35 pilot on an everyday, sort of thing if you're active duty, or also in the Guard or Reserve. Um, Many of my friends work in for the Army, either in infantry jobs. They drive tanks. They do other things. They do a wide variety of things. There's so many opportunities in the military that also translate. For example, there are linguistic specialists. There are language officers. You can use this to be a foreign area officer. So some of the guys that take the classes that that Daryl, the curriculums that he designs, are foreign area officers in the military. A good friend of mine from Harvard is now a foreign area officer, and he will go and be stationed at an embassy, and he'll serve as like the liaison for the Army on the sort of diplomatic but military attaché sort of role, where he sits aside both military and diplomatic decision making. So there's a large variety, and all of it is very applicable. It really depends on you. You choose your path. You decide. You have to have a goal in mind and kind of go after it, and most things are very possible.
Yeah, Chase, I think you're hitting on a really important, like, kind of like the core element of Born, right? Which is kind of this, we have the pre-structured programs, right, and all those things, but the other really big part of it is kind of choosing your own adventure, right? You kind of get
Right.
to curate what this experience is. And I think you and Daryl are both kind of demonstrating the breadth that exists within federal service. Because I know when I first thought about, I was like, okay, soldier or spy, those are my two options. And then you talk to people at INSEP, and they're like, well, no,
Yeah.
actually,
No. No.
there's
No.
there's so much more, right? And so I think you're hitting on a really good point, which is, defense is not all defense. There's some diplomacy elements in it, and state is not all diplomacy. There's some defense elements, right? So they all kind of mix in, intermingle, and all those things. And I think that's really great to share. And so thank you both, for providing that insight. I think that's super helpful. It really would have been helpful for me way back when. Um, but I'm gonna push us on to our last question before we open it up to Q&A, which is, do you have any advice for applicants or awardees, regarding any part of the boring process? So whether that's applying, whether that's being abroad, fulfilling the service requirement, actually working in public service. And we'll start with you, Chase.
Sure. I have tons of advice, and I'm sure this will bleed into the Q&A, so I'm not worried about covering it all right now. A few of the things that I would say that's very key in the application process itself is um, the pre sort of before you get it kind of thing, is presenting yourself as a well-rounded applicant, right? Presenting yourself as a well-rounded applicant is also what's going to learn once you do apply for jobs, et cetera. Is something that you have to build. So you may be really into something particular, right? But what you want to do is connect that one passion or what skill that you have, and kind of dot it along the other aspects about you to show that the application Boren itself, what makes you, what makes you special, right? What do you not only bring, right? Because it's not necessarily like a competition or a tryout, right? But you are showing them that, hey, there's more to me than I'd like to go overseas and study a language, right? And well-roundedness also, and another part of the application I would recommend is showing that roadmap, right? It doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be exact, obviously, right? Not many people follow the exact thing that they apply for, or when they list in their application what they want to do. 5 years down the road, turns out they're not diplomats, or turns out they don't do this or don't do that. I mean, some of my friends are. I currently am still on the same path, but things change. They know that, right? But it's better to show that you have. I want to go from this point to this point to this point. This is how Boren will help me achieve that. That's really the key goal. The most important advice that I could have, at least for the Boren part. Um, the current Boren part would be obviously also choose a place you really want to go to. Don't just say, well, this is going to look good on some sort of application, right? Choose somewhere that you're going to be happy, because you're going to have to live there. Um, choose a language that's interesting but challenging, right? Step out of your comfort zone. that's really all what this is all about. And then once you're there, we'll get into this later, but I mentioned this earlier before we started the meeting, is you enroll in the STEP, make sure you really enroll in the State Department STEP program, which I forget what the acronym is, but it's the emergency, notification process, so that the State Department knows where you are at all times, how to get in touch with you. It really will serve you well in the case that something happens, like it did Daryl and I.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah, Chase hit some really good points. And not to reiterate or to come at a different angle, I would say once you get there in country or as you're planning to, do your applications, as Billy mentioned, you have full freedom and flexibility to craft a program that's suitable to you for your interests. So I would really recommend you really taking the time to like find a program. And when I was in Morocco, I studied at a language center by myself, kind of off the grid, in Berber country and Amazigh country. So there was the lingua franca there was the Amazigh language. So I was learning Arabic, but honestly, like not using it in a day-to-day capacity. But it was something that I wanted to do. So you have the full freedom and flexibility to do that. Also, if you're going there, please immerse yourself in the country and in the culture. If you should not be hanging out with other Americans or other Western students, you shouldn't be hanging out with people, from Japan or Australia, that kind of stuff. Like you're going to Morocco, you need to be hanging with Moroccans to get like a full immersive experience. That's what it's all about. If I can say for me, again, like I lived solo, there weren't any foreigners for miles and miles around. And so I lived in an apartment building, and I kid you not, like faithfully every Friday, my neighbors would invite me for couscous, or they would bring me couscous. I got sick one time. I think I had COVID before we knew what COVID was, and my neighbors like came and checked up on me. My language tutor, her mom would give me vegetables and make Moroccan bread literally every single day, to the point where I was like, I mean, carb heavy and like let's slow down a little bit, but I appreciated the gesture. So those are those kinds of things that you really want to do, and you're not going to get that if you're again at an international university or at a university studying with other Western students. So I really focus on that. um, as far as like once you return to the United States and planning for your career, as Chase mentioned, like you might go in wanting something and then it turns out like your interests might change. That was the case for me with CIA. I never anticipated that I would be working for the now Department of War. Like that was not what I was going into at all, but that's ultimately what happened. So go in there with an idea of what it is that you want to do, but be open to things changing. And also do not discount the fact that I imagine that many of you guys are young, probably like in your early 20s. I'm in my late 30s, so life is a bit different for me. But you're still finding yourselves, within a couple years, you guys might get married, having children, starting families, going to graduate school, all those kinds of things. So you should really be factoring those life elements on top of, what it is that you want to do for a career. And the last thing I'll say is for those of you who might be interested in pursuing the intelligence route, just know that that is a completely different beast, and that you really do need to be mindful of like who you're engaging with and even your own lifestyle practices, because when they start doing those background checks, that stuff is very, very in depth and personal.
I just want to echo one thing that Dale said, specifically on two regards, regarding your experiences in your specified overseas location. That would be American students, yeah, all Western, anybody who's not like probably from that country. I would just avoid, only because the default language for them is going to be English, right? And that's going to be what you know as well, right? So you're not getting better, you're not challenging yourself, right? So choose programs that are really built towards that style of instruction. For me, I made the mistake of doing some of my language instruction in some other classes at a mixed sort of study abroad office, right, where there were other Americans, there were other students, and they spoke and instructed some classes in English, obviously not my language classes, right? But my everyday, day to day thing was mostly around other students, right? And I do feel that it detracted from my experience. I did really, I would have wished or preferred had I been like, I did some study in Jordan as well, where you're 100% in the language. It's just you and it like a tutor. So do the research, right? There are language programs. There are very good language programs where you can go and have a university style classroom setting, right? In many countries. For Arabic, if you're interested in Arabic, like the Qasid Institute in Jordan, in Amman, is among the world's best. I studied there. That's like a classroom language instruction style. They're very, very good, right? But there are other like tutors, smaller programs where you meet with maybe one or two different tutors who will maybe one will be your dialect coach, your other one will be your formal study. Then you'll do maybe some other interactive games presentation, sort of to break up the just the instruction 24/7. But find those programs, spend the time, not don't just Google what the first one is and be like, that'll work, right? Really, really, really look at that what style of instruction works best for you. Some people don't like one-on-one, some people prefer other students. Figure out what that is for you. I recommend the one-on-one because there's no escaping it. Like you are one-on-one language 100% of the time. You have to do your homework. You have to study. You have to make sure that's the only way to learn. I had two experiences. I once lived in Morocco part of the time by myself. The other time I had a host family. I would recommend looking into the two of those, right? You give up some of your privacy and your personal space when you do the host family, but then you're very alone when you're like by yourself in an apartment, right? And you're in a country where you don't speak the language. So try to both take the recommended list of programs that Boren gives. They give these out that other students have used that you can go online and look and be like, okay, this is a good one. I like this. Use those as a reference, and then decide really what's best for you. I also, unfortunately, I 100% believe it was COVID. Before COVID happened, to the point where I was lucky to be in the host family when that happened because I was like, completely bedridden for like 3 or 4 days, and my host family took care of me. Many people called in, people from the center took care of me as well. So it's good to really weigh your options, make those connections, you know, um, find out what's best for you, think hard, do research, and I think that's all I have to say about that.
And Bailey, if
Yes,
I can just chime in with one final quick tidbit.
absolutely.
Last but not least, please utilize each other, and the entire Bowen cohort if you're successful as a candidate and an awardee. I'm still in touch with most of the people that I in the Morocco cohort. There were several of us, we met at the convocation that's held every spring. And once we were in Morocco, we actually traveled together in country, like every 2 to 3 months. Like we would get together and go to a different place. Chase and I, we met literally at the airport as we were leaving. But 6 years later, we're still in touch as well. And I'm in touch with other Boren awardees who went to Brazil and Estonia. People went to Tajikistan and Uzbekistan that I'm still in touch with. So again, you are part of a global, but also very small cohort, and it can be truly prove beneficial on a personal and professional level. Over.
Amazing. Thank you both. Um, there was so much great information in everything that you guys said, and I just kind of want to quickly recap. So, like, first thing, immerse yourself. You're going abroad. Be one with the place you're in, right? Also, know thyself. Know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. Know what you want out of your program, right? Um, and be open. I think is probably like the last thing that I pull. It's not the those are not the only three things, but I think those are some of the most those are the things that stand out the most, right? Yeah, just be open to the experience that you can have while you're overseas, and don't well, say no to some things, right? The things you should say no to. But be open to the new experience, to the things that make you go, I don't know. Taste the food you don't like, eat the things you love, because they're all memories you have later, right? But with that, I will close us out in this first half of our session. Dr. Jones, Chase, thank you both so much for sharing your insight and your experiences. We quite literally wouldn't be able to do this without you. Thank you as well to all of our attendees. I hope to see you all applying. I just have a couple of more reminders before we close out. The first is that our alumni ambassadors are available to chat with you. If you're interested, just email the Boren team at boren@iieus.org, and we'll help put you guys in touch with each other. The second is that the Boren application deadlines are fast approaching. No pressure. Wow, I totally commend what Daryl did. Do not recommend. So just plugging here that all fellows, aka graduate students, should have their application submitted by January 21st, 2026. And all scholars, undergraduate students should have your application submitted by January 28th, 2026. And for any questions about your application, reach out to the Boren team at boren@ieus.org. Happy to schedule a phone call, a Zoom meeting, anything like that to answer any questions you might have. But thank you, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their night.